All right, so we are coming to you live in another session, of course. Today we're going to be jumping in to some of the altcoin projects and also just in general, various projects that are really starting to break out. My name is Paul Barron and this is TechPath. Welcome back. You guys, of course, tuning in live, best thing to do right now is, of course, jump into the chat, jump into the comments, and give us kind of your questions that you'll be having and your feedback, because we love to kind of see what you guys are doing. Of course, we'll get in there and answer some questions as we go. We'll try to get to as many as possible. Things are flying through in the chat already, so just jump in there. Don't be shy. Kind of go in that direction, and we'll get into those. Of course, as a reminder also, make sure and subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed. Maybe you've discovered this on your search for crypto enlightenment, and this is the place for you. We cover a lot of late-breaking technology in the blockchain space. Obviously, that involves a lot around crypto. Our mantra is, of course, crypto, technology, and investing. That's really what TechPath and the Paul Barron Network is all about. Another thing, too, is we do have something coming up very shortly. October 7th is our big date for launching the Diamond Circle. The Diamond Circle is a new member-only group that is part of the Paul Barron Network family, and of course what you guys have been doing in helping us grow this channel, but also helping a lot of people discover their whole idea of what they should be doing in their new investment plan, and maybe, you know, just in general around technology and adapting it to their everyday life. So that's going to be a big thing happening October 7th. Big issue there is going to be member-only content, both on videos, podcasts, etc. We'll also maybe have some reports in there. We also have a lineup of courses that are going to be coming in. Those will be paid, of course, but you'll be able to get big discounts on those. But the number one thing that you want to be involved in the Diamond Circle for is the airdrops. That's right, we're airdropping digital assets back to our community, and our community is anyone that, of course, has signed up in the membership. So be on the lookout for that. I want to jump to this first story here that kind of shows a little bit about what's happening within some of these hot movers over the past few days. And I understand Bitcoin and Ethereum are waffling, you know, in and around that 42K mark. We've seen a lot of resistance, and we've seen kind of this sideways chop for some time, but there has been a little bit of activity and continue to see activity in the DeFi space, which I think is what is really helping this kind of go in this direction. Uniswap price prediction. Here's why Uni just skyrocketed. And let me zoom up on this because this is kind of a good read. Uniswap popped during the weekend. Of course, this is in the aftermath of the cryptocurrencies banned by the Chinese government. Uni, of course, rose by more than 30% past 24 hours, bringing its total market capitalization to more than $15.3 billion. And of course, that is a scenario that has been charged against what's happening in China. And mainly what the scenario is that the Uniswap platform has become so much more active because of the Chinese people essentially starting to utilize some of these tools to start offloading a lot of their cryptocurrencies, because this is where it's going to get very interesting around both DeFi and in general the exchanges, because the exchanges and also other tools are being shut down for mainland China. This is really kind of the bigger thing that has happened. We did a video on this earlier, and the idea is that there's so many tools that are being shut down to the Chinese people that this is really causing a big ripple effect, and hence what you see right here. So the announcement was relatively negative for cryptocurrency price because of the significant role that China plays in the global economy. However, the implications of the new ban will be limited since the country has already banned the currencies before. The difference here, I still think, is that we're starting to see all these tool sets kind of move away, and as a result, you've seen, you know, Huobi, who of course announced they're stopping their offering of cryptocurrency in the country. The other platforms out there that do a lot in China is things like KuCoin, and KuCoin is another one in terms of their percentage of their Chinese population. I'd be interested in seeing how much this would impact KuCoin and Huobi. So Uniprice, of course, price is jumping because the investors believe that the announcement will lead to more transactions in its ecosystem, meaning that's the DeFi system, because it is a decentralized exchange that is not controlled by anyone. So this is going to be a lot more difficult to get the Chinese population kind of detached away from, even though China has been able to do that within the internet. When you think about their access to Facebook or even Amazon for that matter, that ecosystem is so closed to a certain extent. The question will be whether or not that starts to eventually start to migrate into other aspects of the blockchain. Uniswap price prediction. This is the daily chart that shows Uni has jumped in the past 2 straight days. It's trading at $24.95, which is about 40% above its level on Friday. Moved slightly. We'll show some charts here on Uni and kind of where this is moving from a sentiment standpoint. There could be some opportunities here, but more importantly, I think what's happening within the whole space is we are seeing buying opportunities around altcoins in general. So many different altcoin projects that are really kind of moving in that direction. So lots of good stuff there. I also want to jump to Dydx. Now, Dydx is interesting. It sees their trading volume double that of Coinbase. That's right, they're soaring as a protocol. And Dydx is a governance token of the decentralized exchange Dydx, which saw large gains in the crypto market today after a spread that the protocol is now handling trading volumes compared to some of the biggest crypto exchanges out there. So that is the big news, is that people have discovered and are moving on Dydx, in essence, that it's outpacing that type of transaction numbers that we're seeing on Coinbase. And of course, when you look at the overall space, and look at this chart right here, just kind of the movement that we've seen right here with Dydx jumping up from what was right around, $12 to where it's seeing its high there at 22. So some good stuff. But 5 years ago, this guy, he left Coinbase, and eventually this is the guy that founded Dydx. And today, for the first time, the protocol is doing more trade volume than Coinbase alone. Now, this all points back to the global nature of Bitcoin, but also the global nature of cryptocurrency and altcoins in general. The opportunity here is massive, and these types of projects like Dydx and many of these type of platforms have really kind of reset the global stage, I think, in terms of how people are accessing financial funds and how they're being able to move money around, how they're doing their local investing, and also just the whole barrier to entry, which is a big part of that. Because you got to remember, there's a lot of unbanked. There are a lot of people in emerging countries that need this kind of access, that have mobile access, and all of these kinds of exchanges, DEXs, and also DeFi platforms give this kind of freedom out there, because you're not needing those third-party or intermediary kind of components. And that really is the big scenario here. So interesting, I think, when you look at all of this and how it plays out. Another one that we talked about here on the show, and I know you guys have probably said, hey, Paul, it's enough with Cody. But Cody is one of those that continues to do those kind of scenarios. And make sure and check out the video that we did on Cody, because they're doing some very interesting things both on stablecoin development, their partnership with Cardano, which I still believe to a certain extent that there's something left in Cardano. Now, a lot of people, and in my DMs and on Twitter, I'm getting a ton of people that are talking about, Paul, that the price of Cardano had all of this baked into it. We're probably not going to see Cardano rise any further. I feel like there's still some open water for Cardano, maybe not as much as some of these other projects. So it is one of those that is kind of on the fence, or at least for me, I'm on the fence about. But Cody, on the other hand, is definitely one of those projects that I think has a long-term play into going, I wouldn't say going into, but being able to become an infrastructure platform for a lot of the financial systems that are, remember, that are outside of the global financial system, meaning the central banks, meaning, the sovereign nations, and these massive investment opportunities that are coming from structured capital that eventually will start moving billions, if not trillions of dollars around. That's an XRP thing, definitely going in that direction. But it is something that with Cody that I think is going to fill a gap that's going to be wide open and very little competition, at least right now, that could be able to take Cody into the next level. Make sure and check out the video, because it really breaks down what Cody is doing and why I think that it has such a potential long-run play here and going forward. Now, I want to jump to a project that is called Matrix. Now, Matrix ETF is, let me kind of just jump up here. It kind of gives you some tokenomics, and we'll break through this a little bit, but basically it's a next generation ETF, cross-chain enabled, that is the basically decentralized ETF platform to run cross-chain, whose goal is to establish decentralized, automated, personalized, and diversified portfolios for users, as well as help users enjoy long-term, stable, and efficient financial services. So this is a project I want you to keep an eye on. There's a lot here when you look at the features of what's happening here. One-click investment, they've got a DAO, community governance, personalized fund, cross-chain, which I think is going to be the biggest part of this, and then portfolio based on DeFi, obviously, you know, kind of the whole aspect. The roadmap is pretty straightforward. The team is also, I wouldn't say that they're 100% seasoned, but it's an experienced team that I still am good with. And what they're trying to do at Matrix is a very interesting attempt on especially kind of changing the game for DeFi. There's going to be a lot of scenarios, and I think a lot of backlash coming with what Matrix may be able to do here. And I want to kind of talk about what those might be. But platform self-created funds. This is based on unique weighting methods that the Matrix team will launch several ETF funds, but not limited to what you're seeing here, which is the top DeFi ETFs, public chains, etc. The other thing is it's going to be support for adding derivatives, another interesting product development, DAO community governance we talked about, and then the Matrix components, which will include DEXs, lending, farming, some of those kind of things that you typically see on many of these. But the phase is the self-created funds, and then support for adding the derivatives, and then obviously going off into all of the components themselves. Team and investors, this is a big lineup of investors here, including Solana, obviously, because it is a Solana-based platform. And the ability, you've got Divergence Ventures in here, you've got Moonrock Capital, and some of these, obviously Chainlink and Parsec also involved in this. So big opportunity here, one that I am watching very closely. The economic model is pretty straightforward. IDO versus what they're going to be doing in the liquidity pool and the private sale. MDF is what is going to trade on, I think it's, what is that, $1 billion in terms of distributed as follows. So it's a typical tokenomics scenario. And I think this is one that is really going to be interesting to watch. And again, cool in terms of what they're trying to do. I love the DAO community governance because I think that is going to be one of the things that really keeps some of these projects at check and at bay. I want to jump over to their website, kind of just to show you what you're going to be looking at here with Matrix ETF and what's going to be available. We'll go over to the finance side of it, and you can kind of see what we're going to be looking at. And this is going to be, as I said, going to be one of those projects that I really am interested in keeping an eye on, especially as they start to flow out into an opportunity for you to maybe get into them down the road when you do invest in them. And that goes back to the whole strategy that a lot of people are utilizing today, and that is whether you go in on the IDO, and if you're getting early access to IDOs, then that's a great, you know, entry point, obviously. But you can also get these after the run-up. So once that an IDO is done, and then we get the public sale and the private sale, the public sale, and then we launch, the run-up is going to happen, and the opportunity is on the back side of that for a traditional retail investor. And that's typically where you want to catch these early projects like a Solana, like many of the projects that we're seeing flying right now, including Avalanche, Algorand, you name them, that we've talked about here on this show. And some of these projects that have been around short-term that have started to move on. And that's where I think Matrix is going to be an interesting one to watch. All right, so let's get to the charts and get rolling on that one, because I want to jump to the Dydx chart just to show you this run-up right here and kind of where this was. And again, we'll do these market movers. The idea, even in the live side, is when we align data across these metrics, it's coming from our proprietary data of sentiment analysis that covers both sentiment and then also the amplification of that sentiment. Amplification is typically something that starts to be a leading indicator on where a project is moving. And it's a very important one, and it's one we really, live by because it has been so accurate within the last, 6 months as we've started to lay that in. And we've hit somewhere in the tune of 80 to 85% in terms of accuracy. this is a good example right here of measuring DYDX right here back in September 18th, just this little move right here, downtrend. September 20th, we saw this sentiment at 5104 and an amplification at 3988. 3988 is a terrible amplification score. And of course, that showed out over this point. We took another bubble sample data set right here, and this is where it got very interesting for DYDX. Sentiment scored at 60.29, not a tremendous bump, but it is a big one. The big bump right here was amplification, and hence, when you see those kind of amplification numbers, these are the kind of zones that we typically will see, and it widened out just as it started to get erratic right there as we're trading on September 28th, and now we're past that right here, and it's still holding in the cone. The question will be, and we're going to watch this one very closely, we may pull another sentiment bubble on these to put out a potential price target for this one. So this is one that we are watching closely, and I want to try to get into a little deeper. Uni, of course, everybody knows that one, but this was a quick chart on Uni, which had been somewhat, I will say, docile over the last little bit of action after that, what we saw at that high right there on September 16th, which was trading at 27. Then we saw the big sell-off at the point where we saw the scenario with China. Of course, that's the typical scenario coming in. And then you see sentiment climbing back at 63.55 and AMP jumping over 64.04. Again, flipping sentiment, which is another indicator, as we've showed so many times on this channel, is once that AMP starts to outpace sentiment, things are going to get weird. And that's exactly what happened with Uniswap, so much so that it was way outside of our range of what we thought it would do. This right here, I would have to say, is somewhat, I don't know if I would call that manipulation, but there was definitely some push here from some entities that were really moving in this direction. So back in the zone, and it seems to be holding pretty tight. I'm very interested in this little whoop right here, because that could get us back up to around the $25 to $26 mark on Uniswap. So, or on Uni. So those are the things that I kind of keep an eye on, and I know there's so many others out there, and I just want to jump to the spotlight to see today, because this is the typical what we'll see in hottest on Twitter. Again, Cody holding right there, tweets way up, sentiment. Let's see what sentiment is on Cody just real quick. And going to the 7-day, you can kind of see this just massive move right now. This one may be a little hard to get into, but I think it's very, very early. So that's one of the biggest things. The other ones to kind of keep an eye on right here. Still, and this one was an interesting, Bitcoin Gold to show so much action there, and then movement right here. Bullish coins, still BTC at 85. This goes back into our earlier video of Bitcoin and why we think there is really at a very interesting crossroad right now, especially getting outside of September and going into that. So lots of happening. Still market cap holding at 1.8, which is a little dismal. Daily sentiment fairly neutral right now, and trading volume still holding at under 100 billion, which is a little bit soft for the market overall. And of course, I think we'll continue to see some of that. I want to get to some of the questions on where some of these projects are going, how to identify them, and kind of moving on. So let's get into a couple. All right, so let's go with the Cody prediction by the end of 2021, John Doe. So let's take a look at Cody real quick and just see where we are. So again, back to our, and we've done analysis on Cody on that, and I may have to pull that chart for you, but to get you in there, I still think this is probably by year end, depending on the bull market continuance, because I think Cody will have an altcoin run. More importantly, I'm looking for more projects that are coming out on Cody. When they launch, I think, what is today, Tuesday? Yeah, they're launching their debit card and credit card this week. So when that happens, I think that's going to get out there. As we start to see that kind of news continue to climb, there's an opportunity here for Cody to hit $1. Now, will it hit $1.50 before year end? That's the big question. That would be a 3x. That's a little bit early. This one is more of a long term. I still want to ride it up, maybe take some profits, but definitely a positive one that I would definitely like to stay with. All right, so let's continue down on the look. All right, Luna, this Red Rocks, Luna. Okay, I'm an investor in Luna. It is a project that I love, and I still believe in it. And I also just look in general, Terra Luna, and what it can be in the DeFi space. And by the way, we're doing a ton of courses on DeFi that will be dropping into the Diamond Circle for members and also for member opportunities. So be on the lookout for that. Luna, though, is an interesting one. Does it get its continued rise? It's kind of like Polkadot. Polkadot, I don't think, has had its pop yet, versus, say, something like Solana, which I feel like is going to rise still with where it's going in terms of the bull run. But Dot, that's one that I feel, like Luna, has definitely got some headroom to definitely move. So I like that one for sure. We'll continue to go there. And yeah, okay, so interesting one here. And I know the Doge Army is out there listening in. Do you think Doge will hit $1? This has come from Grail Mine. Okay, I'm a big lover of Doge. I think it has the facility to do some interesting things as a meme token, but can it hit $1? I just feel like it's just not. What's going to drive it there? What would drive Doge to move? Sure, it's going to get its, customary pump when Bitcoin goes to 60K. It's going to get a customary pump when Bitcoin goes to 70K. But does it hit $1? I feel that is still a low. I just don't know. I don't think so. I feel like there has to be something for Doge that has to architecturally change to be able to move Doge past that point and kind of moving on. I felt like in the early days of looking at this meme coin that there might be some involvement of other big players, whether it was an Elon or someone like that, would get involved, or even for that matter, some of these big protocols that might say, hey, maybe we should do something with these partners or do an acqui-hire kind of concept and really try to pull Doge in and do something with it from a structural standpoint. That's the big concern I have right there. So I would say it's going to be a little tight of that happening. All right, Solana is a good question. So let's talk about that. Flavor Sweet, why did Solana drop today? This was another one that we looked at when we did our Solana video, that we were a little concerned about the sentiment. And this goes back to the point, I still, first of all, am a big believer in the Solana ecosystem and what's happening over there. But there's other ecosystems that are starting to divert funds away from Solana. And unfortunately, in that kind of space, you're dealing with projects that are like going from Matic over to Avalanche, Solana over to Avalanche, Algorand is stepping in. There's only so much room for that. Eventually, one of these is going to win out in a big way and kind of take a point position. Whether it is Solana, I think, is still yet to be determined, because there are still some people that are huge in terms of where Avalanche is going to go and what that might look like. So that in itself is still up in the air. I don't know why it dropped, but I can tell you that the likelihood is it's the liquidity looking at moving to some new, more greener pastures in preparation for a bump. Don't get me wrong, when Bitcoin moves, Solana is going to move with it. Will it move to an all-time high, or really go after what we might see it cracking open and doing some 1, 2, 3x? That'll be an interesting one to watch for sure. All right, so we did Mar Saka. What are your thoughts on Elron? So EGLD, eGold. I like this project. We did a video on it. I was part of one of our altcoins to watch, and still a big proponent of Elron, and I think what it has in terms of its opportunity out there. The concern I have with any of these projects is really the defining factor of when the bull run hits. There's going to be some altcoins that really take the sail, meaning if you've ever done sailing, there's going to be some that just set in there, really fly. Now, can Elron be one of those? It's on the bubble for me of one of the high flyers. There are some things that could happen, though, that could trigger Elron into moving way out there in front in terms of really kind of high performance during a bull run parabolic move. because this is going to be the thing. We will see a parabolic move, which will trail some of these altcoins up, and then you've got altcoin season that will start to roll out as Bitcoin stabilizes. That's where Elrond, I think, will perform. So I do like it as a project. So if you're holding it, good for you. And let's see here. All right. Cardano's block. Is there any other blockchain suitable for the job? There's a lot of them out there. Let's go to, this is a good one. Shime Beast. How much percentage should be ADA, Cardano, and XRP in your portfolio? I can tell you that both of these, let's see, because Cardano I slipped a little bit in my portfolio, so I would say XRP is actually a bigger holding than Cardano for me now. However, I'm still an ETH, Bitcoin, and then there's a handful of other coins that I've done. I did do something, though, with a lot of my lower performing altcoins. And this is something I talked about on the show, is that I jettisoned a lot of lower performing or underperforming altcoins, dumped them, and repositioned that capital fiat because I had to sell them. Took the loss, did some loss harvesting, and then jumped that in. Remember, not investment advice, not tax advice for that. But I put that into an IRA, Bitcoin IRA, and now I'm looking at that as a model to help accelerate that. So it gives you a tax loss harvest. So you could do that with some things as well further down. But to answer your question, XRP still a top 5. Cardano, I think, bumped out of my top 5 this week. So one to keep an eye on. Let's go to Bueller. AMP, please. Okay, so I will tell you this. We had an AMP video that we did with Flexa, which of course is the functional aspect of the AMP token. And it was a great CEO and founder interview. I would suggest that you jump in and listen to that video or watch it, either one, depending on if you're listening to this or on the podcast. There are some interesting things happening there for a payment ecosystem. Now, there's a lot of payment ecosystems out there with AMP. I'm not sure that AMP will be there long term. I know that we're going to get a lot of hate for that. I'm not sure AMP is going to be there long term because I think there's so many new protocols that are jumping into the space around what AMP has been doing. So I would be careful on AMP at this point. Can Cardano reach $3 this month? This month meaning September, 2 days? No. If you're talking about October, things have to happen for Cardano. Really, some big things have to happen. One is I think they will get a run up. Again, bull run, they'll get a tailwind with Bitcoin. But long term, I think this one is a little bit slower burn than initially anticipated with what was going to happen with Alonzo and its rollout into smart contracts. This one is a little bit more concerning. I know a lot of people are absolutely in love with Cardano and believe to it to the extent. And then the other side of our audience is the exact opposite. So they look at Cardano as not a project they would even be in. This one is a tough one. If you're looking for multi-X gains in this bull run, and when I say multi-X, meaning a 5X or more, I don't know that Cardano is the one that will do it for you. So don't worry about that. James McCool, if that's your real name, which it's not, how do you get into your Diamond Network, the Diamond Circle? The Diamond Circle. All right, so the way you're going to be able to do that is you're just going to go to paulbaronnetwork.com. Now, when you go there today, it looks like a general website with blog and some videos and all that good stuff. The new site launches on October 7th. It's a full membership site. It'll have courses. It'll have a whole layer of things you can do. And best of all, that is where we get your free membership into the Diamond Circle. And when you're in the Diamond Circle, three things are going to happen. But the main thing is we're going to drop back value to our community. Number one. Number two is you're going to get member-only content, and that is doing things like my own personal portfolio. I'm going to start breaking down things I'm doing, and then also our circle of investors that we've done within the Diamond Circle itself, the real Diamond Circle, the real life Diamond Circle, and how we talk about and work on our strategies in moving into the investment community. Again, not investment advice, but hopefully it's going to get you in the right direction in going in to whatever you're doing in terms of your journey. All right, there's so much going on here in the thoughts. Okay, All right, I trust the IC. All right, so this is Chaos 00. I trust the ICP project that I bought for 300, but the price is falling because the coin is constantly in circulation. What are your views on ICP? Okay, ICP is a struggle. I will say that. I'm with you on this, Chaos. My original purchase of ICP was purchased at a high rate. I lost a lot of money on that token. Then I understood what they were trying to do. And this is the scenario that often happens, what you're dealing with in some of these projects like this, is they get this overzealous. Now, the first video that we did on ICP months ago, even when it was at a high rate in terms of its value, we were concerned. I was even concerned. And I even went against my own research and thought that, because, hey, even I'm guilty of FOMO. But I went against my own recommendation, my own research, and because my concern is that they were too early, and I still believe ICP is early. So it is a token that I'm very intrigued with. I'm very intrigued with the project. Dominic, I like him. We had him on the show. It's just fascinating what they're doing over there, and they've got the right team. I just don't know that the world is ready for what they're trying to do with ICP. Then again, I don't think the world is ready for blockchain, so I could be wrong on that. All right, so it looks like we got a super chat coming in from Brandon Payne. And let me see, Brandon, if I've got your super chat, because our studio is not allowing me to see it. But Brandon Payne says sponsor your biggest show when you realize the reason Vitalik B joined the Doge board is because ETH needs Doge. Actually, okay, so you're talking about Brandon. He's a Doge guy jumping in. So I like that in the sense, Doge, hey, listen, Doge is one of our biggest, has been one of our biggest videos. XRPs are our bigger videos. Our altcoin videos do really great. And there are a lot of ties into what's happening over on Vitalik and what Ethereum needs to do. Could there be something that's connected between ETH 2.0 and what Doge could be doing down the road? Sure, there could be. And as I said, there has to be something that starts to connect the dots for Doge to really take off and move to that parabolic level. And when I say parabolic, I mean where, remember, Doge trading at, say 20 to 30 cents. And when you say parabolic, we're talking, let's say 10x, that's a $3 run. If you do 5x, you're going to $1.50. So something big has to happen for that to happen. So definitely something to watch there. Brandon Payne, thanks for jumping in on that one. Doge, ETH Bridge, I'm responding. The biggest show, a good one. XLM, AR, will it go up? Let's jump into a few more of these. Chill Money always brings some very interesting tokens, and that is ALCX. That one I want to research a little bit deeper. This project is one that got brought to my attention. I'm very interested in kind of moving in that direction of just doing an analysis on it. Again, remember, many of the projects that we'll look at will try to stay in the top 200, and in some cases we'll jump out of that. But for the most part, the top 200, there's just so much information coming at us from both the projects themselves, but also from viewers and readers and listeners that want us to take a look at these. Many of these we're trying to get to as fast as we can. The first thing that I do, though, just to give you an example, is we'll do a sentiment analysis on the project. If there's enough of a heartbeat out there in the social sphere to show us that there's some traction from a monetary and money flow standpoint, and then we look at the project itself. So sentiment is the first thing. If there's no action there, no matter how good the project is, it needs light. So it has to be able to get to that next level. And these are the projects that we would continue to do in that process. So we check that first. If it looks like it's got some light on it, then at that point we'll take a look at the tokenomics or the project or the team, the roadmap, and then we'll take and do an assessment on how we look at it for whether it's an investment or just to talk about it here on the show. All right. Quant, I'm still very interested. Danny S. on Quant. I'm not an investor in Quant. It's one that I've looked at many times over and over, and we did and have done a lot of research on Quant. The problem I see is that we have so many competitors that are kind of moving into that space, kind of like HBAR. which we had the HBAR CEO on here recently on one of our shows. That's another video you should probably check, because Hedera is doing some very interesting things. Again, I don't think they get credit. I still think that project might be a little underpriced in terms of an investment, but the bigger question is whether or not that project can make it outside of what it's trying to do right now. All right, let's go with, that looks kind of a ramp up. And okay, Virgil, we're going to do an anchor for you because you're right. It is, and what we've seen with Anchor, and it's been drawn out on Token Metrics, I think drew this out. The guys over at Token Metrics is Anchor as an early one to watch back in, months and months ago. And it was one we missed. It is Web 3.0. It is one of those platforms that is and has that future. Now, I will guard against that for one point, and that is, and this is why I always refer back to Avalanche, is that Web 3.0 is great for projects that are developing on Web 3.0. It's fantastic. Their use case is going to be very narrow because of the amount of people. It's kind of like 5G, 4G, if you think about it. Only so many things are going to be able to be on those Web 3.0 platforms until you get the transition from Web 2.0 over. So what I've always said to you is watch for the projects that make that happen. Remember the bridges? You know what I'm talking about. EVMs all over. It's the same scenario from Web 3 and Web 2 to Web 3 is you've got to have that transition to be able to lock in, one, all those developer and tech stacks that are sitting out there in the real world doing real things, and being able to leapfrog that into the blockchain and then implement those kind of applications into real world blockchain scenarios. Remember, you're very early. You're watching a show right now. If you're here on TechPath, the goal of this show is to introduce you to innovative technologies of all kinds, whether it's blockchain, EV, autonomy, robotics. All of this is the movement of our society in the next decade. And for you, for most of you, if you're under the age of 50, the likelihood of things you're going to see are beyond anything we can imagine. And blockchain is in that space at the very microsm of position. It's in the position of really becoming something super special. All right, so you guys, of course, when you are watching this, whether you're watching it post live, just of course hit us in the comments. We'll try to get to those as best we can. We love all the token analysis. There's a ton coming in here. Chromia, Mad Max. I want to show, I can't give you a prediction, but I want to look at Chromia. Definitely one that I'm interested in. Atom, Cosmos, definitely we had the Cosmos guys on. Amazing project, I think, with the two founders getting back involved in Cosmos. That one's going to be one that continues to move. Moon River, we did a video on Moon River, actually. I love Moon River and where it's going in the Moonbeam platform. I think just that connection to Solana and all that's really a big one. Seller, one we're going to watch, CELR, one we're going to watch. Definitely, I like that one. Mohammed. And let's see what, Donovan Walker, AKT. I'm going to look at AKT, Donovan. I'll try to do that as best we can. Again, man, this is another checklist that I hope Chris is keeping track of over there of things that we need to look at for dropping into this. And then, all right, one last one. Russell Cowling, where do you think Matic could be by the end of the bull run? Matic. Let's talk about Polygon. Like this project, my concern, only one, is Avalanche continues to suck the wind. If you looked at where the volumes were going, and we had one of our analysts in here doing a course earlier today, and she and I were talking about Matic and the conversion between watching the money flow. I mean, you could literally almost watch it happen on, I mean, it just was happening right in front of our eyes of really money flowing out, what I thought was out of Matic and almost matching what was happening over on Avalanche. That's the concern I have with Matic. Now, will it see some moves? I don't think it's going to break out like DOT. DOT, I do think, is one that is going to pop. And I don't think that we're going to see the end of the run for Avalanche. So it's going to, it'll stabilize. I do feel like it's going to see some, but maybe a 2x on Matic within the bull run, when the bull run really starts to feed on itself. And that, of course, is still the big question mark of where that's going to happen. All right, you guys are tuned in over on the podcast if you are listening to this after it's been on live. Make sure and jump over to YouTube because you'll be able to subscribe to the channel and get our live feeds just like this. We're going to try to come to you guys more and more live. I don't know if the 3 o'clock time slot is a good one, but if you like it, great. Just let us know if you like the 3 o'clock. If there's a time that you guys, our community, feel like you want to see a live show, I mean, I hate to go at 11:30 because I know the guys at Banter and you got BitBoy going out at that time, but we're trying to do a little bit different things as well. Sometimes bringing you content that may not be directly crypto related. I know you don't like to hear that, but we are all about technology and kind of the evolution. But anyway, let us know in the comments below. If you want to reach me, hit me on Twitter. It's @PaulBaron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.